Hello, welcome to the Birmingham Property News Show. My name's Ewen Rankin. I'm a Birmingham-based photographer, and my knowledge of property grows every week. Not much, but it does grow. Thanks to James Forrester, who's on the other side of the table. Hello, mate. How the devil are you?
I'm a bit ill today, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm impressed, actually. I thought you were going to chuck a sick note today, I have to say.
I've got my British Cup, so full working spirit and, battle on, as they say, which is what's happening in the House of Commons tonight, so it's all good.
Lemsip, the pride of Britain.
It's not Lemsip. Listen, there's a bit of people are cutting costs here, so I've got Asda's extra strength.
Asda's max strength.
Yeah.
Also joining us this week, who's going to share a microphone with James and take his life in his hands, Stuart James, who is a Birmingham-based photographer as well as.
Yeah, good evening. It's good to be here, and I know very little about property the same, so I'm looking forward to learning something, mate.
This is going to be a great show.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be James Central.
Yeah, well, I was about to say this. It's probably the worst day for me to be picked on, to actually comment with more stuff. So it's look, we'll see how we get on anyway.
Hi, my name's Ewan. Hi, my name's Stuart. Over to you, James.
Okay, well...
Deliver 30 minutes on your own.
HS2 shouldn't go ahead.
Okay, we'll come into that in a second. Are we going to start with yours or are we going to start with mine then?
I think while I've got a little bit of energy going, I think we should start with yours.
Right, okay. So near to where I live, there HS2's coming right through here. So I went out to the site earlier on today and I recorded a question for us.
This used to be a rugby club, but it's not anymore. About a quarter of a mile that way is a school that my wife teaches at, and that's being displaced completely from an old Victorian building into a brand new premises. The question raises at the moment whether HS2 is over budget or overused, or whether it's going to be happening at all. I say yes, but James says no. And if it is, what's it going to do for Birmingham property prices? Let's see.
So there you go. Let's see. HS2, is it going to happen or isn't going to happen is the first question. It's run through the local village here quite well. The local rugby club is now gone. There's a drainage site happening there. And my wife's school is moving from an old Victorian building into a purpose-built facility over the other side of the green. So it's an absolute positive for them. So I say yes, it's a good thing, and yes, I hope it carries on. But James, you're saying no.
Absolutely, and there's not many people in property in Birmingham you will absolutely hear say no, because the majority have based Birmingham on the arrival of HS2. But it just doesn't make any sense.
Oh, well, the actual concept makes loads of sense.
It does, as long as it goes past Birmingham, and it goes up to Manchester and then to Leeds, and then the northern towns obviously benefit from this. But at the moment, there's no funding past Birmingham. And so, the government is saying currently it's costing 55.7 billion. That's the HS2 chief exec saying that's what he's been told. We know it's probably going to exceed that because it's already gone up from 32.7 billion. So the real cost just to get to Birmingham from London is going to be roughly around about $90 billion it's anticipated. £90 billion, which, let's be honest, I can go on Virgin, Chiltern. Obviously, there's other train providers as well, but I'll just do the Virgin one because that's the one of the faster ones. 1 hour and 24 into Euston. Now, I don't think when I'm in London, I'll tell you what, if I could get to Birmingham 25 minutes quicker, I'll be able to have a coffee. I'll just get an earlier train.
Yeah, but that's where I think, so number one, the fast route is actually, the additional routes that you're going to get aren't just Birmingham to London Euston, it's Birmingham to Heathrow as well. And that'll be 38 minutes through Old Oak Common. That'll be massively quicker.
But it's still not that bad. You can get to Euston and then you can jump on the tube.
But this is where we're going to agree, because my point about the concept is good, is the concept was that you could effectively, in the end game by 2050, jump on a train in Paris and get off in Edinburgh.
No, absolutely. No, that I agree with.
So we're not going to disagree on that concept of that's where it should be. There should be a Europe invested, and as we're leaving Europe, then who knows? But
it's taken too long. We're talking about 2026. The likelihood is that's going to overrun anyway, because that's the earliest. And they've only just started work on doing the station. They haven't even bought up the rest of the houses yet. So they're jumping already to try and create that sort of positivity, which I get 100%, especially with today's political uncertainty. It's obviously for house prices, they're jumping off it, new developers, they're jumping off this. But my worry is, on a property point, is Birmingham's very heavily based on HS2, where I would rather say, if it's not going to be on the plans to go to Manchester and Leeds straight away, scrap it, and give the money to the local transport routes, because in the northwest they're an absolute nightmare. And let's connect west to the east. And even from Birmingham, let's give more money to the tram, get that accelerated. Let's get more around the local area, which will bring up that connectivity, because, you know, there's a fancy station, it looks wonderful. It's not even connected to anything. If you then want to go somewhere local, you've got to get off it and walk to New Street.
But you're talking about two different economies there, aren't you? Because the tram is being funded by Birmingham City Council in the main, I would have thought, and other consortiums perhaps who are involved to boost business for Birmingham. Whereas HS2 is a nationally funded project with an end game which is for the national benefit rather than just the local benefit.
Well, it is, but don't forget, obviously we have devolution now in Birmingham. We have our own mayor, so he's in control of a lot of spending that's coming from central government. And, you know, I know deep down, you know, he's very, yes, HS2 would be great, but I think realistically, if he listened more to the locals, you know, he would want to see the local transport routes a lot more
But
connected.
that was my next point, was that the local transfer routes, there is a thing in the National Railway called the Railway Upgrade Programme. There's 50 billion invested for existing route upgrades across the country in the existing infrastructure. So the local routes are getting infrastructure investment and are getting improvements to the same tune in the next 3 years as HS2 is completely to build.
Not enough. That's the issue. It's not enough. And all of a sudden, if you took that 55 billion now and you were able to put it across, then, you know, look at what Crossrail's done, you know, down in London. You know, massive project, costing an absolute fortune. And this is what this HS2 is all about. It's all about Londoners, you know, and the high elite, you know, having an expensive
That's
travel.
where we're really going to disagree, because it absolutely isn't. It's about spreading wealth to the north.
Well, that's what they say, but it's not going.
It is.
But it's not going to the north.
Well, you've got to bear in mind, there's no fossil fuels in 2040, mate. So there is no way of getting to the north without an electrified system. Cars are still nowhere near. You talk about transport of goods, lorries are going to be nowhere near at that point.
So scrap it. If we're not going to be ready, there's no point planning on with this, because we're not going to have the infrastructure ready.
No, you can't scrap the removal of fossil fuels, mate, because that's
scrap
just
HS2.
going to be gone. No, my point is HS2 is the only viable solution for getting to the north of England.
Listen, I agree
with goods and people.
I agree we need big infrastructure projects. Absolutely, because it just shows how good we are as a country. You know, obviously it's created a lot of jobs, but at the same time, what was it I read recently? Over 100 staff at HS2 are on over £100,000 already. There's a lot of wastage going. You know, if everyone,
I think that's a fairly minimalist cost against the total budget, mate. I mean, the problem
really,
you've got.
Well, the chief exec's on nearly £652,000 a year, I believe.
Well, most chief execs are. I don't think that's fair to point that out.
But he at the moment, you know, they're on what, number 3, is it?
Yeah,
chief exec. So they're going through it. So not one's obviously actually sticking out and doing the job.
I can honestly tell you where the cost has come. A, buying the land, because it's pretty expensive, and buying all the houses and buying people out of their properties and into new properties. That's going to cost an awful lot of money.
It's not all bought though yet.
The other problem is you look at the delay that there is in displacement. So the local rugby club that I showed you in that little video, they've come away from that property. They've gone to a temporary property. So there's several 100,000 has been spent upgrading that property so it's viable for them to play and give them lights and that kind of stuff.
So it's interesting.
Hang on, let me finish, mate. And then, right, I know it's your show, but let me finish. But then the other problem you've got is the diocese own the lands that they're going to. The diocese have then get to give notice to the guy who's the farmer there. It's taken a year to get him to get his cows off the land. And then they found some great crested newts or something in there. So they've had to make a wetland on top of that for the newts. And then they've got to build a rugby club. And it's crazy the amount of money that has to be spent. And it's all about delays of purchase more than anything. And I think the one thing that they're going to have to be careful of, you've got an awful lot of societies and clubs that have been displaced by it. And worse still, you've got people who have lost their homes to compulsory purchase. And if that doesn't go ahead because of the compulsory purchase stuff, man, there could be absolute uproar because people have lost.
I don't think there
50-year homes.
I don't think there will be uproar, to be honest. I think yes, it's you know, I'm not too happy. I see a lot of these old homes and they're being lost with the land and everything. But actually, when you look at it, I think people would rather see the land not be ruined. And yes, there's a lot of it going underground. But I'm just reading here now that they've already said that it's not going to Heathrow anymore or the Channel Tunnel. It's already been shelved. So again, the flaw is now there that actually, if I want to get on it at Birmingham, Curzon Street, and I want to go to Heathrow, I can't. I've still got to do what I need to do going from New Street to Euston, which is get off and change. I can no longer go to the Channel Tunnel, so I'd have to get off and go to Waterloo. And this is the issue. I think look, I'm all up for the big projects. I think it is great for property prices. It's great for the UK. We need big infrastructure projects like this. But what they've done is gone, we're going to Birmingham, we're going to Birmingham, we're going to Birmingham. Look, this is the Birmingham Property Show. So I'm one of these people saying, yeah, but it doesn't stack up financially. There's better money can be spent elsewhere to benefit the local economy. If they were saying, right, it's going to Manchester and Leeds, the finance is already secured. So yes, we'll get to 2026, then we're going to be open by 2033. That's fine. But at the moment, they have no idea where the money's coming from. So the big white elephant in the room is, it is just going to go to Birmingham and then it's going to stop. And that's a complete and utter waste.
I agree. I agree with that point. If that's all it absolutely is, I totally agree. There has to be a process where this thing finishes its job and connects the south and the north, because otherwise it is a white elephant. I'll totally agree with that.
But on a property point, then I'll ask Stuart what he thinks, is Manchester haven't really promoted HS2 in a major way. So it has in little bits, but, Newcastle the same, Leeds, they've not really banged on about it to say, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. To get that, excitement from international investors, outside investment, etc. Birmingham's very, very heavily based on this. Most of Digbeth has been built on the promise that HS2 will arrive. So if it doesn't, what's going to happen to all the apartments around there? Is the demand actually there? Are the property prices actually false? And they're not increasing 20% as we see advertised on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I mean, number one, we should ask Stuart what his opinion is of HS2 total. And he can say what he wants, even though James is sat next to him. And then we'll ask him the question about the Birmingham element.
Yeah, I mean, totally. The idea of it, I think, is great, to connect the south to the north. I do like that. But the way it's been gone about, I think, is terrible. And it's whether it's bad management, a whole colossal collection of different things that have knocked on one to another. And yes, it's a huge project and one of the biggest projects that's ever been carried out. But the way it's been done it's just been terrible. And you look at the sort of figures, and is it actually going to have the sort of effect that it needs to have to justify this sort of spend? And that's sort of where I'm seeing things. And
yeah,
you can see all the problems, and yes, all the environmental things, we all know about that, and we see that all the time with different things. But where is it? What difference is it really going to make? I guess that's the thing. And how much are people really going to use it? I mean, looking at the most recent sort of figures, if you've only got a shift of about 5% of people moving over, then really, is that justifying it?
I think so. If you look at the building of the tube, initially when that started, they used it as an excuse to get rid of a lot of the slums in the East End and things like that. And there was a human displacement there that was massive and probably unjustified, but it went ahead because there were, of the era, the time the businesses could talk about that kind of stuff. We come to a modern era though and talk about HS1. That's 10 years on now. And you won't find anyone in the south of England that says anything bad about HS1. And if you look at Kent, 98% of people in Kent say that if HS1 was to be built again, they'd say yes to it. Because it's brought so much prosperity to the region. And that's a hard thing to really talk away. Because that's statistical, and it's verifiable, and it's objective, and it's something that shows that high-speed routes work.
But it's also a different area. And the north is different to the south, and we all know this. And I think that's the difference here. Effectively, Birmingham could just become a suburb of London that you can reach in 49 minutes. But they're already saying that actually they won't even be able to run the train at the high speed anyway. So it's going to run at similar speeds to what we've already got. So it's, look, it's, we need bigger projects. We need bigger projects like this. But at the same time, unless the whole of the UK benefits, the cost doesn't stack up. It's taken far too long. Bordeaux, don't forget the French are like the craftsmen, aren't they, of the high-speed rail. But they've just, in Bordeaux, completed 300 kilometres, literally in 4 years. A lot of it going over countryside. So, yes, HS2 has, a little bit more uphill struggles, but they just got on with it.
Okay, but there's rail renewal projects that I've been on that do 2 miles in a weekend. And you've got the high-output train, which I filmed 2 weeks ago with a guy. And the high-output train will replace 300 metres of track and ballast in a night. That's massive. That's huge amounts of terrain over a period of time.
Absolutely. But they're saying that with HS2, it's going to cost billions on a yearly basis just to run it.
And if you look at the French use exactly the same system as us, and they replace and they return to speed but they return to 35 miles an hour, whereas we return it at 90 miles an hour. So it's coming back at the speed it was before it went off the night it was fixed.
Much better service, though.
Here. No, I'm talking about here. No, because it's reduced speed service in France,
on high-speed rail, it's much better in France.
Yeah, but when they renew it, it comes back at a slower speed, whereas we renew between 90 and 110 miles per hour in this country.
I get that, but it's when we come down, it all comes down to figures at the end of the day, doesn't it? And I think at the moment, the majority of the people looking at HS2, the majority of our viewers tonight will agree that actually the costs are spiralling out of control, and there does not seem to be any restriction on curbing this.
I think HS2 are quite silent as well, and I think they work on the principle if they say nothing, then if they say something, they'll get attacked for it. If they say nothing, they're still going to get attacked, so they might as well just keep it to the things that people want to conjecture that people want to put out there. I don't think the costs are anywhere near as run away as people talk.
Well, if you look at it, it's like they've always said that they won't know the cost until the contractors are in place.
Yeah,
and their mantra is very much as HS2 is on time and on budget, no matter how clear. Neither of these things are true. And that's the key thing. So I've just pulled it up here. The chairman. £600,000 a year. And it's yes, I get chief execs. When they're looking after huge budgets, get paid a lot of big money. But you have to start looking at this and going, it's going way over budget. We know it's not going to be finished on time. I think everyone knows that deep down. But it's a failure at the moment. It is being classed as a failure. We've got already in the Midlands, the training centre set up here at Aston. The big HS2 offices over at Merry Hill, and we don't even know if the product's actually going to go ahead yet. So what's the point?
Yeah,
get it all in order and then present it, and then let's see if we can go with it. But don't try and. I think this is for the pun. Railroad it through. You like that one? Railroad this through on the hope, because we know what happens in this country. It'll get to a point where they'll go, it's no longer viable. We're not doing it. That's it. And by that time, the taxpayers picked up the cost.
Yeah, but you look at the amount of cost that it spend over a period of time that we spend it. It's infinitesimal in the global budgets of the UK.
I am happy to have a bet to say this will not go ahead.
Okay, what are we having? Lunch at somewhere that we can get. Thank you for the business for it, eh?
Well, we could go to AR Rocha. Obviously, Edgar, when you're watching, you're looking to join anyway. But
he should join.
Well, we could go to the Novotel and Broad Street because they've got great lunches.
Oh, no, they haven't.
Sarcastic.
No, we're out of panto season. What am I doing?
I'm sure there is good times when they have good lunch, but I'm just going from my own personal experience, Novotel, and there is other hotels in the area.
Next story then. This is yours, James. Additional derelict dwellings not liable for what's the tax that you pay when you buy a property?
Stamp duty.
Stamp duty, thank you. That was the word I was looking for.
3% surcharge.
Yeah, no, this is a dead interesting story because this is going to open a whole load of loopholes for developers,
This is
surely.
hot off the press, and I mean hot off the press. So, as you know, anyone who's buying a second home is at the moment has to pay a 3% additional surcharge. It's been great for the government. They've claimed in excess of about 4.95 billion, since they put it in place in, when was it? I think it was 2016 when they put it in at the back end. No investors like it. As property companies, we don't like it. They're obviously on about at the moment charging an extra 1% to overseas buyers, and that's going through consultation at the moment. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel here. In a recent case, a judge has ruled that if you buy a property and on the completion of that property it is not suitable to live in, you will not be charged, or you can't be charged, the 3% surcharge. Just normal standard stamp duty.
So define for us then not fit to live in, because we're not talking about whether there's rats running around or whether it's dirty, are we?
Oh yeah, it's got to be right. So I'll give you the case what's happened. So lady and gentleman called Paul and Nikki Bewley, back in January 2017, bought a bungalow for £200,000. They paid their normal stamp duty, and then HMRC came back and said, hang on, you need to pay us another £7,500 in the additional costs. They took this to court because they established that the remit for claiming the surcharge depends on whether the property is immediately habitable upon completion. So that means that as soon as you complete, you can get the keys, you can walk in, and you can live in that property. And when we mean live, you can use the kitchen, there's no asbestos, all the little things that would stop you living in a property. This is actually back from the Official Housing Act back in 1957. It dictates that a habitable property is one that is a functioning toilet, bathroom, cooking facilities, and available to the occupier. In this case, the Bewley's property was asbestos filled. No central heating was the central heating was really dangerous. So obviously, that could obviously have a major effect. And as I say, the judge has ruled on this and has basically turned around and said, yes, you shouldn't have this. But also, for those landlords who are looking at this, if you've bought a property without a kitchen and you completed on it, you can't move into that. If you've paid that 3% surcharge, you will be legally able to go and claim this back now. You'll have to, obviously, you're going to have a bit of a battle to do it, but now this has gone through. Either HMRC have got to appeal to all this and go through, but this is going to be huge, from this. So, they're saying at the moment that refund claims in general for stamp duty getting wrong has increased from 196 million to 385 million.
So, I mean, we're talking about properties there with toilets and cooking facilities, but that list of uninhabitable is going to go quite vertical, I would have thought, because people are going to be looking to extort this loophole now and make the most of it. And also, there's an awful lot of people, when they buy their first property particularly, they don't want to habit it. So there's going to be a very fine line between judging when you can force this through and say, no, you really do owe me the stamp duty back, versus people taking the mick. Well,
absolutely. I think if you're doing a full refurb and there is no kitchen in place, the heating's broken, you can't go and live in the property, can you?
But it's be interesting whether you've taken the kitchen out to refurb or whether you've gone there and the kitchen is unusable.
Well, I think this is where the loophole will open up. If people are buying, well, don't forget, you're not going to get the keys anyway until you complete on the property. So you're not going to be able to go in unless it's your mate. And this is probably where the loophole could kick in. You're buying it from a personal friend. They've given you the keys. You go in, you're ripping out stuff to make it unlivable, and then you're completing on the purchase, afterwards. I think that's where the loophole is probably being looked at more.
Right.
If you're buying it at auction, for example, you've got to complete on before you'll get the keys. So you can't then go in and rip out the kitchen and say, actually, this was unhabitable when I completed. So there is a bit of protection there. I think it's going to happen more on the private side of it. But I think also they're going to be red hot on this. Don't forget, if you're putting it on the market, if it was only done a year ago and there was a brand new kitchen and all of a sudden you've ripped it out to save, $7,500, I think you're going to find a bit of a battle with the tax authorities coming back at you to say, look, you're in the wrong here because we have good evidence to prove so that this has been ripped out for no reason.
And your mate's a bit silly if he lets you into the property to rip stuff out before you've completed.
Well, it might not be that he lets them in, but you might find that if the property is in need a lot of care and refurbishment to make it attractive to investors,
good choice of words,
then they will do it themselves to make it get under this loophole.
Stuart, you're a married man. What was your first property like with the missus?
Yeah, I mean, well, it was perfectly habitable, but my God, it was disgusting. And we literally ripped the whole place apart. But there's no way we could have fit within this sort of loophole. But I can see totally where that's coming from because, as you say, to be attractive to investors coming in, taking that derelict property from being perfectly habitable to just ripping out a few things, then it's going to be very easy to suddenly dodge this tax, isn't it? So it's quite an interesting thing to see how it goes forward from the tribunal and see what the final decision is.
Seems to me, I'm going to have a chat with my mate Nigel, who's a surveyor, tomorrow, and I'm going to ask him, because I think the surveyor's view could actually be the tipping point as to whether it's falls within this loophole or not, then surely, because they're the ones that are going to look for things like asbestos or work that needs to be done structurally to the property before it can be habited, and that will affect the mortgage amount and that kind of stuff. So surveyors might be a really interesting one to try and get hold of. Talk about this.
Yeah, definitely, and it could have real interesting repercussions for the buy-to-let market as well, couldn't it? So it's an interesting one to watch for sure.
Is this going to get really silly, do you think? Can we come back to this in 6 weeks' time and it's going to be an absolute nightmare because the lids come off?
Well, I think HMRC are going to challenge people whenever they can. It's a lot of money, isn't it, that this potentially could have a loophole on it. But, there's a bit of an argument, isn't there? Typically, an unmortgageable property, you always find there's one without a kitchen because you can't go in and move in and start cooking straight away. You usually find that you can't get a mortgage for that as well. It's very difficult. But, actually, if you don't have the basic sanitary facilities like your toilet, for example, well, you can't really move into that property.
It's interesting, though, that previously the HMRC were the people that were seen as a de facto statement and the line on the line. And now you've got a court ruling that says that they're not.
Well, it's based on the Housing Act. Don't forget. So very clever from the people who brought the case, and obviously they've not sat back. They've said, look, this is not a livable property. Obviously we're going to have to refurbish it. We can't just move in there tomorrow. So we should not be getting penalised for this. The same as overseas investors should not get penalised for buying in the UK.
Right.
It's still under consultation. So if you are an overseas buyer, you need to start buying quickly just in case that extra 1%. Because don't forget, if you're buying a 200,000 property, 4% additional stamp duty on top of the stamp duty as it is going to be costly.
That's a good tenuous link.
I just don't get why they're penalising everyone for it. It's not going to stop. When they go, it's going to stop. The housing demand. It's going to curb it. We're going to be on target. It's not going to do anything. Altogether, people will still buy property for investment because if the financial numbers make sense, they will do it.
You're feisty when you're right, you might.
And also, it's a bit like.
And another thing. Go on.
Well, I'm going to go on this. So it's a bit like Facebook, Amazon, Starbucks. The tax situation, a little bit different. But if you make it more difficult and you're going to penalise people who potentially could make big money, they will find ways to find the loopholes. So just reduce it, make it a fair cost where people will go, don't really like paying it, but all right, I'll swallow it and I'll get it paid. And you will probably find that will do a lot better.
Excellent, mate. It's time for advice from our friendly mortgage advisor, Tess. She's here with the deal of the week for you.
Hi James, how are you doing? Hope you're both well. This week we're going to be speaking about the mortgage lender, which is one of our upcoming lenders. It's sourcing quite high on our panel at the moment. This is more for specialist lending, such as people with arrears on previous loans or CCJs. So they're good for people with bad credit histories. They brought out a new Help to Buy equity loan range, which are 5-year fixed deals at 75% loan to value, and they're coming out at 4.3%. That also includes an application fee of £999, but it does include free valuation. I hope you have a good week, and I'll speak to you next week. Bye.
Thanks, Tess. There's your latest deal. Get in touch with Tess at, I can't remember the name of the company. Oh no, it's gone blank. James?
Mortgage Advice Bureau.
Mortgage Advice Bureau. Thank you very much. Do apologise, Tess.
Bad.
No, it's just, one of those things like, I've got to remember the name, and then it comes time and you haven't remembered the name. That was one of those moments. Right, now then, Stuart has brought a story to talk about, and one of the things that Stuart is very good at is weddings. And one of the things that I hate the most is weddings. So this is if you've got a wedding, don't call me, call Stuart, because he's brilliant. And also, he's going to talk to us about the influence of weddings on the property market. I thought this was quite an interesting link. Go ahead, mate. Go on.
Yeah, well, I'll bring the two sectors together because, as I've already said when I started, I know nothing about property, so there was no point trying to talk about something. But with the wedding show right around the corner and me being a wedding photographer, I thought it was a great time to jump in and talk about it. And as soon as I started looking at things, it was really interesting to see the synergies and how the property and the wedding market are so similar. I mean, after all, they are possibly the two biggest expenses that you go through until you have kids, of course, and then it's game over. But it's just seeing how things actually develop and looking at the market trends as the reports have just come out for the last year, and then comparing that to the facts from the property sector, I thought was really, really interesting. Yeah, from the standard things of the wedding market is good. It's in an absolutely great position, which I'm very happy about, of course.
Good lad.
But then also seeing that the spending, well, the age that people are getting married is moving. And I've been in the game for 15 years, full-time and part-time before that. So I've definitely seen the change. And it's quite good because it saves me feeling like an old fart of a photographer because the couples are getting older as well. And it's falling to exactly the same point within the property market as well. So, with your average age of people getting married at 30, just under 33, so 32 and a bit, ties in really, really well to when they're buying their first property as well, which is the age of 31. And it's just quite interesting realising that straight, literally, it's almost like they go in, get together, get engaged, buy the house, get married, and then that's it. It's that whole progression. And it's an age-old progression, but it's really interesting to see that it's still there. But there's some of the other little synergies, and of course, you've got different movements across the country with spend and everything that we'd always expect to see. But seeing that it's exactly the same with property, I find quite fascinating. But when you're marketing for weddings and when you're a bride and groom, when you're looking around, I find it amazing seeing the percentage that they actually do almost everything on the phones these days, especially with research. And I was going to say, with property, James, is it the same sort of thing that it is moving more online and moving towards mobile search and everything for property?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the marketing now and the way it looks because when the market, it's difficult or it's in a boom, just going in and taking a quick photo and getting away with it now has changed. People really want to see, the property come to light. And, if you're not dynamic and it's coming through to a mobile, correct, if it's not on the social media. So we get, as a company, more hits via social media than now we do on the portals. And that's quite bespoke marketing, really targeted. So you have to have, that element tied in as well. But I can give you, a recent one that we've got, a house for sales, had there just shy within the past 2 weeks of nearly 10,000 hits. Now, compared to the portals, that comes, and that's proper detailed views. So I think on the portals, it's about 3,000 between the two of them. So it just really shows that you can target, your markets. And I think it depends on the platform. I think you've got to do a bit of everything now for property. Yes, it's very online based, but I'm a big believer of the old school way. So, still go and put the letter through the door, on evaluation, go and have a chat. People are scared, I think, to chat at the moment, which at a wedding show is the complete opposite. If you're scared, you're going to have a horrible day because everyone wants to chat and you're excited. Selling a property is probably not the same as getting married, but marketing wise, it's just as important. If you get bad photos, so if you had bad photos at a wedding, you're going to absolutely be, devastated because you can't go and relive it. On a property point, you're lucky that you can go back and get someone else to come and do it, but you might affect your sale, which is horrible.
And if you want bad photos at a wedding, call me, not Stuart.
But I think that's a really key point that you said there. You've almost got that one hit, haven't you, that you really need to stand out against the crowd, and your imagery does that, and whether you're putting that out on the social or on the portals and everything as well, then having that initial contact that people can see straight away, and they can tie that in with the recommendations and reviews from friends and family and other people within their sector. And it's that confidence point, I think, and the transparency that you get on social media just, I think, breeds confidence. You're not hiding behind anything then, and they know they can see you, whether it's on a video or anything, that you're there as a person. There's that accountability, I think, and that's really key. Yeah, totally interaction, and people by people, and it's an age-old thing, and it's good to hear that you still, even with everything all being tech, you're still holding on to the true values of doing the job properly, and it just makes a massive difference.
I think there's a difference as well in the way that social media works now, because the media looks better. You've got video as an option, which you never had before. So you go to the estate agents before, and you had a picture that was taken probably on a crappy little Instamatic camera, and then the pictures were actually pasted onto the boards. So you didn't have that ability to shoot a wide angle. You didn't have the ability to then start looking at touching the images so that the lighting was better, or taking them at different times of the day. There wasn't the images are far better. The quality's improved. That's got to have had a massive influence, and then the online ability to see that on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And on weddings, as I say, it's just as important. It's a huge day. Look, when you're selling your house, it's one of the biggest financial transactions you're going to ever be completing, in your lifetime. And you've got to feel comfortable, but you've got to be marketed correct and use all the tools in the box, to represent your house and to get it sold for the right price as well. If you've got the wrong marketing, don't expect to get the right price. Now, you might sell it what you wanted for, but actually with the correct marketing, you might have sold for it over what you were asking for as well. And people would have been happy to buy. And that's the difference. It's not being forced on to buy it. It's where they're happy to buy it. And it comes down to different strategies, on marketing. It's a bit like weddings, isn't it now, where, obviously I'm getting married next year, after 17 years. So, eventually, so it's no rush.
Mate, she must really love you.
Yeah. Well, if she's watching tonight, you'll probably get a message going, "I do not." But they're expensive. They're a huge cost. And you want to make sure that everything's right as much as possible. But on the day, you literally are handing over control. You have no control what's going to go ahead now. And when you sell a property, it's very similar. Once you sign your contracts, you're handing over one of your most expensive financial commitments over to somebody to do the best job possible. And you've got to make sure they've got the belief and the same passion in the industry, like Stuart has obviously for weddings, and yourself for obviously commercial photography, to make sure that, or HS2, to make sure that they're going to do the right job for you as well. And I think the nice mix of modern and old, I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, I think with modern optics as well, it's far easier to convey the sense of what the property's like. I mean, we went and saw a property in Albury, didn't we, a few weeks ago? And the big thing there, that was a really big, spacious property. So the important part was to make sure that the images looked like it was a large and spacious property, which I hope they did. And certainly the little video walk around that we did conveyed just how intricate the property was and how good it was. And you couldn't have done that 15 years ago.
Not at
never
all.
manage
And yeah, it's that sort of imagery that just stands your head and shoulders above the market, and they connect with people. And it's you can see it no matter where you're looking at for property, you know, whether it's holiday lets as well. If you see good imagery, it attracts you and it gets you excited. And it's exactly the same when you're selling. So the right imagery can really just get your perfect buyer in at the right price straight away, which is, of course, what it's about.
Absolutely. Good story, mate. Good story. Right, we'll be back again next week as normal on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. If you'd like to watch live, we've got a chat room as well on the website. The website is on James's page. If you go to birminghampropertynews.co.uk, then you'll see the link through to come and watch live. And you can also write to us and say that you'd like to take part in it. So if you're involved in the property industry in any way whatsoever, or even if you're looking at buying a property or you're a first-time buyer and you want some advice live on the show, you can ring in and we'll give you some advice on what to do. We've got some property developers lined up in the next few weeks. Have we what? Yeah, we'll find a way of ringing. We've got a Skype line. We'll make a Skype line that you can ring in on. There you go. We'll take an ad hoc call.
You're really moving forward here. I like it.
Yeah, no, I just thought of that. I thought of that. I didn't run that by anyone first either. That was a management decision.
Good man.
Even though I'm not management. So yeah, we're going to expand the show and we're going to get loads of people in. We've got 5 Skype lines that people can come into. So we'll be talking to people across the world, hopefully, about property development and that kind of stuff as we get going. If you'd like to sponsor the show, then you can. At the moment, the show is sponsored by Barrows and Forrester, the estate agents in the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham. Fantastic firm. Krish, that you know, who regularly comes on, is part of that firm as well as. And there's a bloke called Forrester on the other side of the table who's part of that firm too. But you could sponsor this podcast as well if you want to. So get in touch with us at info@birminghampropertynews.co.uk to find out how. Where can we get a hold of you, James?
So you can get a hold of me on Twitter at BF Property Group, or you can go to our Facebook page, Barrows and Forrester. Just put it in and it will come up straight away.
And where can they get hold of Tess as well while I think about it? Because I messed that up.
I'm hoping you can tell me.
No.
So Tess is, do Stuart while I just pull it up.
All right, okay. No, but you can just say the name of the... I'll edit. No, I won't. Stuart, where can everyone get hold of you, mate?
Yes, mate. So the main website for me is stuartjamesphoto.co.uk. Stuart spelled correctly with a UA. And so on there and then on all the usual social channels, and you get a real good feel for what we do to help our couples have the best day possible. And then Tess's details. Tess is at the Mortgage Advice Bureau. And so if you go onto Facebook, it's Tess Latham Mortgage and Protection Advisor. And you see this happy smiling face, and she's definitely the one to speak to.
Next week we'll have a debate whether Stuart should be spelled UA or EW. If your name's Stuart and you'd like to come on the show, then give us a call. My name's Ewen Rankin. I'm a commercial photographer here in Birmingham. I'm at 12 SpaceMedia, or you can follow me at Ewen Rankin on Twitter. 12spacemedia@gmail.com as well. See you next week for Birmingham Property News. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.